Coming up on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show.
This is a little bit different of an episode. Again, it's a live panel discussion entitled Show Me the Money, Creating Value from Connected Things. It was recorded November 1st at the Smart Home Summit 2016. Special thanks to Gavin and Dominique and all the good folks at Kinetic 365 for allowing this, and as always for putting on a great show. I try not to miss any of them.
All this and more on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show. The people, the business, and the technology of the next generation internet. This is the IoT Inc. Business Show. And now, here's your host, Bruce Sinclair.
Hello and welcome to the IoT Inc. Business Show. This show is made possible by sales of my book, IoT Inc., published by McGraw-Hill, and the IoT Inc. Certified IoT Professional, or ICIP, online training and certification program. Become a certified IoT professional by completing the program's 3 courses: ICIP Technology, ICIP Business, and ICIP Strategy and Digital Transformation. Details of which can be found at www.iot-inc.com. That's www.iot-inc.com. Notice the name of the panel here. Creating value from connecting things. I guess I have a bit of a contrarian opinion on this. I don't think there is much value in connecting things. In fact, I think you have to go a lot further than just connecting things. I'd like to hear from every panelist, and we'll start from JP since you have the microphone. I want to hear your whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, and what you think.
So I think what we're talking about here is we're going to start to connect things instead of just connecting people. And is there value in the connectivity of things? When we look at the first 2 waves of the internet, it was all about connecting people. And the data traffic that was generated between people was sufficient to power an enormous advertising industry, now $70 billion a year, that makes the entire web free, effectively, for consumers. So now that we're taking this paradigm into the physical world, into the Internet of Things, we're going to have data moving between devices. The question is there a potential to also make those devices and services free to consumers in the same way it has happened on the web? And I believe yes. The answer is yes, and we need to start looking at that.
But the question is, creating value from connected things. Do you believe there's value in connecting things?
So basically, today, the smart home is mostly gadgets, right? Expensive gadgets. Early adopters are willing to pay for them. They probably won't turn into bricks within a year or two. That's okay, because that's what we can do. Is there value for the mainstream? I think if you have a dumb device that does its job perfectly well, like a door lock or a light bulb, you don't understand why you should pay 50 times more for a connected version. But if you can get the same device for the same price or even for free, then there's a lot of value there. Just like the web made information available for free that you had to pay before. Now, before you had to pay an encyclopedia, now you get Wikipedia. It's much better and it's free. So I think we can do the same thing in the physical world.
Okay, all right. You sort of answered the question directly. Let's hear.
So I do not disagree per se with your sort of thesis there, but my view is there's not much value in connecting things to the internet. You can connect your toaster to the internet, your sprinkler to the internet. That doesn't create long-term value. A lot of this is gimmicky, but there is value to be created by exchanging value. If I create value and I'm willing to give up some of my personal value back to manufacturers or service providers, there can be some kind of a value exchange which could be mutually beneficial and expand the pie for both sides. I haven't seen a lot of examples of that, but there is some early promise of that. But ultimately, I think value is derived not from just connecting things, but actually creating some incremental value which did not exist before. To me, it's not about monitoring, it's actually making our lives easier, more simpler, and giving up something in return. And in a world where middle class is stagnated in the United States and our disposable incomes are, frankly, has been flat for the last 10 years, you need to create the pie from within that sort of situation. So that's the test. How do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So a couple thoughts here. So I do think there's value in connecting the home. And I think everyone wants to be a little bit lazier when they're at home and have things automated on their behalf. And early adopters that have done this are showing that there is some value. And if you come to open house, you kind of have a stand in a future moment, but I don't want to just promote that concept store. But I think the keys to adoption right now really starts to look like islands today. You have some stuff happening in kitchen. I think August does a nice job at the front door, and they've kind of reinvented that category. But the islands aren't connected together yet, and that's where the real value is going to be unlocked, where you get up and you'll have your routine. And a lot of things will be automated, and the convenience piece, I think, is still really, really good. But the mass market right now is really into simple use cases. So, and it's agnostic of a home. Things like Tile, it's just a heartburn moment when you lose your keys, right? And so Tile answers that for you really quickly, like, hey, I lost my keys, I can find my keys. And those are things that are winning today. But it's also winning because the price point is pretty achievable. This whole idea that light bulbs are 50 times the incumbent, it's a lot of money for people making $60,000 a year to kind of digest, and so that's still a problem. And I think until we correct that, we won't get a lot more adoption on smart home until we start to solve some of the pricing issues.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a bit contrarian as well, also maybe to the group, but I don't see a lot of value in connectivity, but I do see a tremendous value in smart. Because if you think about all the phones that we have, they're not called connected phones. They're called smartphones. And we pay $700 before the subsidies for those phones, whereas 10 years ago we were paying, $50, $100 for the phone that Nokia might sell. So there's a tremendous value in one of these $50 light bulbs, which I have here. So this is a $50 light bulb. It looks exactly like a $2 light bulb that you can buy at Home Depot. But what makes it $50 is that it is smart, and it does things that would cost thousands of dollars if you wanted to add color to your house, or if you wanted to add scheduling, or between wiring, installation, and programming. So I would agree that there is a value here that is unique, that enables you to do things just this way, same way the smartphone enables us to do things.
Is this the lazy value coefficient?
This is the lazy value.
Okay.
But it's also the only bulb that will work with the very high-tech ecosystem that we talked about early this morning called a light switch. It's designed to work around a 40-cent light switch, and this is one of the reasons we're one of the top 3 selling lights at Best Buy, and why we're not called GE and we're not called Philips, but somehow we're on the stage and competing with those big brands as a very small startup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, this is a pet peeve of mine, but smart products, we've had smart products for 50 years, in terms of embedded intelligence, connected, and I know this is the Smart Home Summit, and we're in the creating value from connected things, but again, connectivity, it's almost what you expect, with a high-end product to be able to turn it on and off. In fact, I was doing this in 2008. I mean, I was, across the other side of the world, turning on and off things in our office because we sold a product that did this. All incremental value from an IoT product comes from transforming its data into useful information. You have to think about that. The connectivity is interesting. We're going to get into this in a second in the next step because value has a price, right? So now we have to start talking about the price. But if we look at most of the products today in that smart home, this light bulb, I just bought a light bulb 2 days ago, $5, $50. Lock, you're going to buy a deadbolt, $17, $170. You're going to get a thermostat, $17, $170. So what is the theme here? 10x, right? And so the value has to, in my opinion, I think the laziness factor is a good one, but I think you also kind of went into when you start connecting objects to each other is when, is when things start creating real value. But I think we have to think beyond just that straight connectivity. And we'll move right into the next.
On your point, just if I don't mind. I used to be a consultant at McKinsey, and if there was a value prop that every dollar you spend needs to create $10 of value. So if I'm going to charge $170, I think your bulb needs to create $1,700 of value. And to me, that's the quantification question I struggle with. Is if you're going to move people will pay for Sonos. right? People pay for Sonos, right? But the value is perceived as much higher than the price you pay. So that's the question. It cannot be just slightly better than what was out there. It has to be dramatically better than. And different products have different ROIs. I'm not trying to question each different manufacturer's products. I'm just saying, keep that in mind when the middle class of America starts adopting products. Yeah.
Yeah. JP, do you have something?
I would like to add to that if we stay with products that cost hundreds of dollars, it will never become mainstream. It's always going to be a small market for people who can afford this. And the internet was founded 20 years ago with the premise that it should be, they made it free. And it should be free to everyone. Everybody from any income range should be able to be on the internet. And now we're expanding the internet into the physical world, and it's turning into a luxury product. And it should not be. It should be free to everyone. So we need the Internet of Things. We need a smart home to be not just better. It needs to be cheaper than what we had before if you really want this to become a mainstream industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add on something. Getting to the point around pricing, I believe what you're going to start seeing in this industry is a couple of things. So one, I think you're going to start seeing some a la carte pricing, meaning might not be around the device, but might be more around the subscription or kind of monthly fee subsidized by other partners. The second one is definitely subsidies. I think you'll see a transfer of where the margins are made. A great example is Dash. From a consumer standpoint, you pay $5 for Dash, but you get $5 in credit when you actually go place your first order. So net cost is zero. I think you're going to see more of that happening to get these devices into consumers' hands. And then over time, the big value has to be, to Bruce's point, in the data. But it's not just about collecting the data. It's about what you do with it, the insights you mine, and the revenue potential it can create can be pretty big, but it's definitely based on the decisions and actions you take from there.
Yeah, and I think we can maybe squint our eyes and think about this as consumer IoT, right? So we've got the smart homes, we've got the quantified self. Now the smart homes, there is money being made, but it's still a very, very small percentage of the population that's buying into the smart home. Quantified self, what's the statistic? After 9 months, it's something like 75% of the smart watches or quantified selves are in a drawer somewhere. And again, it's because you have to go beyond that. And so if you look at, we'll get into the data, but if you look at the quantified self, you have to have something like maybe you're going to be having a heart attack soon, or you need to, measuring your diabetes or something along those lines. But now I want to now just take that thinking and now let's apply it to the smart home. So right now the business model not for the smart home itself, but for the things that are inside the smart home, pretty much follows that same dumb business model in the sense of I buy the light bulb, and then it's a one-time deal, right? It's a product business model, a once and done. So the problem is that the back end, for that simple light bulb there, the back end is you have to have your cloud infrastructure, you have to have your networking infrastructure, you're going to have your analytics there. So it costs something, and that's now starting to tell you why the pricing has to be around that 10x. But today, we are using the same business model to buy that lock, to buy that light bulb, to buy that doorbell, and getting to both you guys' points here, or everyone's point in the sense that until that pricing actually everyone's point goes way down, I think it's going to be really difficult to get this lift off. So my question is, what do you think the business models, or are the business models going to change, and what do you think those business models are going to be? And I know JP's just dying to go first on this one. So I'm just making a prediction. So advertising is going to be part of this, right?
Well, before we get there, so the smart home industry today is really just a consumer electronics industry. You go to the store, you buy the product. Yes, you can connect it. It's a nice add-on. It's a feature on top of it. But it's not the internet. The internet is a service industry. You get your email as a service. You get news as a service. You get search as a service. All of these services would be something you had to subscribe to if there was no advertising to pay for it. And in some cases, people are willing to pay for it. Take Yahoo Mail. 20% of Yahoo Mail users, the number one email service in the world, pay $50 a year to have no ads. So there is a market for people who are willing to pay for a subscription. But if you only offer a subscription and you don't subsidize it, you're missing out on 80% of the market. So what we have today, basically, in the smart home space is that without, the subscription model for example, home security, penetration of home security has been 20-25%, and it's stuck at that. It's been stuck at this level for decades. And it exactly correlates with the 20% subscription rate in Yahoo Mail on the web. So if you don't offer a service for free, subsidized by some form of advertising, you're going to miss out on 80% of the market.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll take a slightly different view. So I agree that internet was never free. Somebody was paying for it, and a lot of it was your private personal data going out, which kind of subsidized it. And so we kind of got lulled into thinking it was free. It's never free. So the way I look at it is I look at my Palo Alto utility bill. I spend about $150 on my electricity, $150 on entertainment and connectivity, and about, actually surprisingly, more on water, $200 on water and another $100 in electricity. About $500-600. That's a typical Palo Alto home, nothing fancy. Assuming that's in the ballpark, in just as an example, the reality is the middle class does not have a lot of disposable income. So what we need to do is we need to convert CapEx to OpEx and make that part of their utility bill, right? So the 600 could stretch to potentially 700 if my fridge and my car could become OpEx. If my gardener sprinkling system could be OpEx, I'm willing to stretch it to 650. But the reality is net, my ability to spend is highly constrained. So the question then becomes, what kind of business models can get that extra $100 out of me per month, and what kind of services? It could be 4 bulbs, it could be a thermostat, it could be a sprinkler system, but it's all fighting for that limited amount of capital I have to invest per month. And this leads me to my sort of forward thinking, which is, if you really look at how broadband took off, generally, there was some subsidization happening to lock you into the ecosystem. The Amazons of the world, the ecosystems, the Google Home, they have the financial capability to lose money to pull you into the ecosystem. Samsung on the fridge can potentially do that. So I think, unfortunately, this is going to become a big boys game. The large companies we are familiar with in the consumer electronics, in the internet, are eventually going to roll up a lot of the consumer home industry and start subscription models around that. And that still means a lot of startups will get acquired for nice prices, but the reality is, to sustain a long-term relationship with cloud, analytics, customer care department, because you're leasing the product 24/7, you need an alarm.com. You can't just have a startup doing that. You need companies which have the back-end capacity to actually provide 99.9% reliability. So that's how I see this evolving. This is kind of like the Darwinian sort of ecosystem of hundreds of companies emerging, but really business model type innovation is really ultimately can only be sustained by a lot of capital and subsidies, but that's eventually where I see it's going.
So just to summarize, you're saying CapEx to OpEx, so you're saying from one-time purchase to something that's more on the service, but then you're also making the point that you can only have so much service because there's only this much budget, right? And then,
right.
And then where are you going from there?
Yeah, and my point was, so those have services which I already need. So you had used fridge as an example. So I will switch to a smart fridge, but I'll take that CapEx for my 12 years into a monthly $20 plan. I used to own a car for $36,000. I'm willing to pay $75 a month or $100 for a car which shows up in my house 3 times a day. The point is, my net wealth did not change. I'm just reconverting my daily lifestyle. So I need light, I need bulbs. I'm happy to convert all my bulbs to smart, but I will not spend more than $20 a month on bulbs, right? So that's kind of the game you have to play. Then the question becomes, 50 innovative entrepreneurs cannot play that game. It has to be channeled through 4 or 5 companies.
Okay, I want to get to the platforms.
I don't know if I have much else to add. I mean, I agree that I think it'll change from a one-time purchase to something that's subsidized. But the near-term opportunities also definitely look like, auto replenishment. It's something that's referred to as the point of configuration. When you set this device up and you can pick who's going to provide your paper towels or your grocery or what have you, you really need to win there. And that's where the business model becomes really interesting. The second part is, something that's already out there, but not totally prevalent, which is integration of commerce, right? The fact you can talk to a device and say, hey, order me some diapers, or hey, I'm out of this, and it shows up like in an hour or next day. There's definitely opportunities there because you want to win at that gate point, right? So you can, 1, collect the data, but 2, potentially fulfill the order. If you don't fulfill the order, definitely take points on it, right? Like a marketplace approach. But then down the line, is it about the data? Yeah. Does everyone talk about that? Yes. Right. But there's still a lot of blocking and tackling to do around that piece. Like, where's the data? What does it specifically say? And what are you going to learn from it? And most importantly, what actions you take off of there? I believe, to the points being made, people will give you your data. I know there's a lot of questions about privacy, security, but you're going to have to give them more than a coupon for it, right? I think it's going to have to be something that's really valuable down the road.
Bob, I want to get your perspective, but before, it's interesting. What do you value your data at? So, for example, I've got the worst directions. Google Maps knows where I live. They know my friends. They know where I shop. They know everything about me physically anyway, but that's okay because, like was said, there's an equitable exchange in value. So it's interesting, and I want to, Bob, I want to hear what you have to say because I know you guys have some interesting different business models as well. But I want to get into this concept of data. We have to do it, but let's do it in an intelligent way and talk about how we can utilize that data in this particular domain. But Bob, we're kind of on you on this $50 bulb, man. So you have to tell us what are your plans for your business model.
Well, we see it evolving over time. So I agree that data is a big component, but right now it is a experimental phase. People are trying these things out, and they're going to retail stores. The data that we have is that the retail showrooms, where people can see them, touch the package, try them out. It's very similar to the periods we had maybe 10 or 15 years ago where the showroom was a critical part of a go-to-market strategy for virtually any product company here in the Valley.
Smartphones even, right?
Smartphones. You had to have them. I was in a PDA company called Handspring, and we launched in retail, and that really propelled us to be able to go public. So I see a lot of similarities to this where people will want to try one, figure out if it has room in their life. And then you're starting to see other models emerge to utility subsidies. It's obviously something that we're looking at. A lot of our customers are millennials who don't have big income, but have big hopes and expectations. They're experience-oriented. So the ability to infuse color in an environment has vastly increased the value of these types of things because there's no way you can do that with most of my generic competitors that will give you any color of light you want as long as it's white. So so that aspect is really key. And we're even seeing in Dallas, there's an apartment complex where you cannot touch the walls. And they're focused on millennials, and they're looking at building out a model to where if you want to upgrade for a small increase in rent, you can smart light your property with ilumi, set up an account, and then you can have control over your bedroom light. So if you want a romantic red at night, you can do that, or wake up to a sunrise. You can have these things. They're very easy to sell. Beauty lighting in the bathroom is very easy to sell for a real estate owner where you can say, the other guy's going to give you green fluorescent, you can have color neutral beauty. So there's tangible value in there that's not necessarily quantifiable, but has an experiential, emotional connection that people are willing to pay for. And when you're only looking at $20, $25 a month more in rent on a $1,400 apartment, it kind of...
But you're saying then the business model there is going to be going on to your OPEX then, right?
Yes, exactly, to your point. And if you do the internal
so
rate of return...
So the apartment building, you're saying, is paying you a monthly fee for the bulbs.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we make money, the apartment building makes money, and the millennial who gets the white walls can now color them red, green, or blue, or whatever color you want.
$20 a month, is that worth $200 a month? Maybe. Yeah, that could be your 10x, your 10x. So I want to go down a different way, and I like the way the conversation's going. So let's think about it. We're moving from our bank account, our balance sheet, and we're now putting it into our monthly fees, right? But they're fixed. So now, if we have a fixed amount, let's say the middle class isn't going up and so forth, we need to somehow subsidize it. Now, and there's someone on the panel here that's very well qualified to talk about that, but I want to talk about one. So one is in terms of homes, is insurance companies. So insurance companies, even with a bulb or whether it's a lock, they would love to know how often you're there, who's there, the frequency that you're up, out, in, around. And there is, now we get into data, we start talking about it more than just at a high-level concept, there is a value to an insurance company to know when you're home and when you're not home in terms of its property insurance, right? And so right now in the smart lock business, this is some discussions that are happening is, can we get the insurance companies to offset this OPEX cost? Let's take it from $170, let's make it a $17 a month. And even then, it's like $17 a month? Is it really producing $170 of value? Then maybe they can pay $10 of that $17. So in this case, this starts to make sense. Now, then everyone here has to ask themselves, is that worth $10 to me a month if somebody knows when I'm in and out of my home? I don't know. I think that's the question. But what are some other ideas? And I want to start with JP. But what are some other ideas for? First of all, I guess, does that make sense, or is there another way to look at it? And if it does make sense, what are you thinking and what are you seeing in terms of how to subsidize this?
So insurance companies are actually the first ones to try to subsidize these products today. And the way we look at it is they will subsidize products that reduce their 1% most expensive claim costs, catastrophic events like fire, flood, others. I don't think they're interested at this point to look at your door lock. They're more interested in preventing a fire that burned down your house or a water leak that will destroy your entire house. And there's two companies, American Family Insurance and Liberty Mutual, which today will pay you literally the full cost of a Nest Protect, a smoke detector, and also give you a 5% policy discount if you let them know that it's on and it's in use.
So that's an example of where connectivity is a value.
This is
right, telling you that there's a fire. Right?
The data itself is worth $100 plus 5% policy discount. It's a great subsidy example, but it will never expand to every smart home device. It will not pay for your fridge. I don't think it will pay for a door lock either. So we need to have other models as well. But they have one advantage is that they can get value out of that immediately. You don't have to wait years to get a return. So I think we're going to see more of that.
Yeah, so my view on subsidy is people who can afford to give subsidy are playing the long game, which means long lifetime value and some kind of hard-to-switch cost associated with that relationship. So sure, I will happy to subsidy if you sign up for a 2-year Comcast plan. The price usually drops by $10 a month if you've seen your cable. If you're not willing to do that, the price goes up by $20. So I will subsidize you for long-term value. So, and if you look at evolution of successful companies which lost money, the Googles, the Facebook, the PayPals, Peter Thiel will mention, he had a 10-year break-even plan to make PayPal what it was, right? Now, that approach can work, and insurance companies are playing the long game. Large companies, Comcast, AT&Ts are playing the long game. Question is, how does an innovative startup play that game? That's a very hard game to play. So that's my issue with entrepreneurship is, how do we win in the connected home with a hardware-centric product, which is not software-driven, which is marginal cost. The big difference is software has zero marginal cost, hardware does not, right? So to play the subsidy game in the hardware business is much harder. So how do you play this game and how do you win? I don't have a good answer for that, but that's why it feels to me that the Comcast and AT&T have a unfair advantage right now. And how do we and I'd love to back people who can break that, but I'm struggling a little bit with that. And by the way, new models from Targets, retailers, Walmarts which could compete against the Comcast. So I'm not just saying it's the old incumbents, but it just feels like cash positive business models are likely to win the space.
Yeah, I think that one thing I would add is when you talk about the business model and the point of acquisition, I think you'll see it be in different places. For example, Apple's making a really smart move, putting in Siri and the platform at HomeKit at the point of the building of the home, right? And so when you integrate that cost into a really big purchase, it looks really small, and that's pretty smart. So the optics on that make a lot of sense. The other piece we talked about already, the subsidy, right? And Liberty Mutual is given discounted premiums, what have you. But I think you'll see people experimenting that is still, as these these prices are still pretty high. But I do believe it'll go the way of consumer electronics. The cost of a flat screen TV started off this high and it'll go down, and the manufacturing scale will catch up and help drive some of the prices down, which would then help acquisition. When that happens, you'll see there's much more ferocity in terms of the business model where we're going to get money, because it won't be from the product sale, but it will become from other things that because the consumers have it in their homes now.
I think the other thing that we need to think about is other markets besides the traditional smart home that can be engaged with these types of technologies. At CEDIA, Ilumi was there, and we partnered with Cortronic, who is one of the largest projector manufacturers in the world. And that projector there probably uses an infrared remote control, and Cortronic's vision was to use the Bluetooth technology that we use that can mesh up to 50 or more devices. And they put it in their projector, and that gave them access for somebody with a smartphone can update their firmware, can check on their bulb life, can make sure if there's a filter changed and something like this. So when you think about the scope of that for one projector, it's relatively minimal. But if you look at Gwinnett County, Georgia, which owns 22,000 of these things, where they're mission critical for teaching kids every single day in the classroom, and you need to have that sort of back-end cloud support, where I can see room 417, their bulb is starting to show danger signs, and then we can put a tech in there overnight, all on a Bluetooth radio that's all meshed together into the cloud. That's where you're starting to look at other options in terms of different categories that may not be as intuitive as a light bulb in your kitchen, but basically is using the same technology in a commercial space to solve a relatively expensive problem with a very inexpensive radio that goes right into the projector that doesn't really cost any more than a remote control that they were putting in there anyway for free.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it's a lot easier. If you think about the commercial, industrial, and infrastructure IoT, you've got a business to run, right? So you're either OpExing, you're trying to save money on the bottom line, or you're trying to make more money on the top line. In the home, it's different, right? Yes, we have a budget and so forth, but it's not the same type of return on investment that you can calculate. Now, advertising, I thought you were going to go there, where potentially with Nielsen in particular, is there no value in knowing what products are being used by advertisers?
So first I want to come back to the point that Upal was making, that operators will have an unfair advantage. I'm not so sure about that because they don't have one today on the web. We don't get revenue from the Google searches you're doing or the emails that you're reading. I think individual services will be able to fly on their own and to extract value from the data. For example, a fridge manufacturer will know much better what's inside their fridge than what Comcast will know, because they will put cameras inside and will collect data. They will be able to see, to do image recognition, barcode reading of anything that's inside your fridge. And they will be able to offer you the option to buy the fridge as a service and to have that service for free if you agree to share the data with the third parties that we have hired for this. And that's not something that Comcast will be able to tap into. They will not be able to take a piece of that business, I think. And this is especially true for really big, complex appliances like refrigerators, washing machines, microwave ovens. It's less true, of course, for home security, for door locks, cameras, and that type of things. But I think the really bright future of the smart home is actually in the big-ticket appliances, in the things that people keep around for 20 years and that are very hard to replace, but have the potential to provide the most insights on what consumers do. And that's what advertisers really want to know. They want to know more about you so they can target you better. They can put you in the right segment for showing better ads on TV or on the web or on mobile. You don't want to put an ad on your fridge. I don't think consumers will ever buy that. I think what they can enable through this is actually better ads on TV and on PC and on mobile, even fewer ads, because you're going to get a lot less irrelevant ads. So it's going to be a win-win. The advertisers will be able to target you better, get more value out of the ads that they show. You'll get fewer ads, and you're going to get a free service that you had to pay before, just like the web did for information.
Yeah, so I may have mischaracterized. What I really meant was large incumbents will win. I didn't really say only Comcast will win. So I do think Samsung and Apple and Amazon have over-the-top a very strong potential. And I think actually Amazon Echo and Google will probably be free in a couple of years, like a dash button if you sign up to Amazon Prime, because voice, you're giving so much information to Amazon Echo that the value of that is going up every day. And if I'm a betting guy, I think that's going to be a free product within 3 years if you're a Prime member. So So I think one key thing, though, is to run a subscription model, you need a billing system, and you need to be able to build 50, 60 million homes. It sounds trivial, but it's not that easy. Billing. One of the things Comcast and others in AT&T have figured out over years is how to bill on a usage-based consumption basis. It's a different mindset. It's not like that Samsung cannot do it, but it's ad-based monetization is very different from charging you $99 a month and then monitoring that and having a call center to monitor that. So it's an operational issue. It's not an innovation issue, but just something to. It's a different set of skills and opportunities, perhaps, for entrepreneurs to build around.
And that kind of takes us to the platform. And I think, we've been nipping around the edges of this a little bit. But I like the point that you made, JP, that the smart home right now is really a consumer electronics business. And that's because they're all verticals, right? And so we talked about data, but it's when you can start bringing, and I'm going to just make this up, but the light bulb with the door lock, when you can start, okay, there's value there, bringing those all together, but that requires the platform. And the platform, right, which is the technical underpinnings of bringing these products together, and then to monetize that's the ecosystem. But I think that is really where, in my view anyway, where the real winners will be is going to be the point products, sure, but it's going to be the platform. And maybe it's from your points of saying you're in the home already, you're billing already, whatever the case. But we can see right now, why do you think Apple, why do you think Google, are investing so much money? It's not like the revenue's there today, right? It's not. The revenue is going to be there when the platform, and more particularly when the monetization of that platform, you'll hear the word ecosystem. The monetization of that platform will be the ecosystem. That's when that real money is going to be there. So I don't know. I just wanted to hear your views on who is it going to be Is it going to be Apple? Is it going to be Comcast? Or what's everyone's view in terms of the platform in the home?
Right. Since I have the mic, I'll just start first. I think Amazon came out of being way behind from Google and Siri to have jumped dramatically because they have 50 million homes, and I don't know how many of them on Prime. I think a lot of them on Prime. So their customer acquisition cost to get that Echo into your home, it's now wrapped on every box, that Echo ad. It's dramatic. So I did not expect Amazon Echo to be a player, but I expected them to be a huge player in your home because they know more about your buying habits than Walmart does now. On top of that, they know what you're saying with your voice from 9 to literally from morning to midnight. I think Amazon's going to be a significant player. I think Google, obviously, because of their huge legacy. I'm a little concerned about Apple, frankly, and how they're going to play. I think they're very far behind now. But this game could change again. But I think Apple is way behind. So that's my view.
I think of what I would add. I mean, it's hard to go against the Googles and the Amazons and even the Apples. I think they're in the wings with baking a lot of things, and they're going to be really tough here. But the other platform piece, essentially platform in quotes, will actually be the interface. The reality is that everyday folks don't want to go to 25 apps to control these things. And so if you control that interface, and that's why Alexa's doing well for Amazon, because it gives you a really simple way. We do believe there's probably a world beyond voice. We don't know what that is yet, but there probably is an interface that goes beyond that if you are at that gateway and you can have an understanding what people are talking about or asking or requesting or ordering, that's pretty powerful as far as a platform play goes as well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I would agree. The experience of opening an app, pulling out your phone out of your pocket and touching the screen to be able to do something that you've been able to do in the past in an instant, again, like flipping a light switch, is one of the reasons that we've sort of held off on trying to integrate with every ecosystem out there and focused on the basics going forward. The feedback we've had from our retail partners is voice is compelling. And after using it in our internal, we don't have a voice recognition ecosystem that we put together today, but we've obviously been using all of them. It's very easy to do, and the commands today are relatively basic, and so it's quite compelling. It's a user experience. Again, if you go back to your smartphone, once you got your first smartphone, your old phone went in the drawer, never came out again. That's basically what's happened to my old light bulbs as well. And I'm looking forward to actually starting to do more voice work as well. The other interface that Bluetooth has that's unique is this beacon technology in there that I don't think people have explored yet. I know a lot of retailers are looking at beacons to be able to use this as a way to monetize investments in their infrastructure, gather data, and become smarter retailers in terms of space utilization and other technologies. And our bulbs are designed to support that from the ground up. But that hasn't really developed into a really value-producing, robust system that people are doing full-blown implementations. So voice to us is where we're focused on the next 12 to 24 months.
So I think the Amazon Echo Alexa is the user interface of the future. You know, we're going to use voice to control everything. It's going to be
almost like Star Trek.
What touch was to the keyboards. Right. But I don't think that's actually the primary use case for the smart home. The smart home, the whole point is that you come home and things happen for you. You're not going to have to ask your home to do everything. So I don't think, from that point of view, it's a platform. I think it's a very, very nice new way of interacting with computers, and it just happens to be in the home first. But I think we're going to see that everywhere. We're going to be talking to our computer very soon. We're not going to be touching them or typing on them as much. We don't do it, but it will be the secondary use case. When we talk about platform, you have to really think of something that goes across a lot of brands and where there is valuable data being exchanged. And Alexa does not get valuable data from these devices. It just sends commands like turn on lights, turn off lights.
For now, yeah.
It does not know anything about what's inside my fridge or what anything that Nest does in the background, you know, to any of its AI machine learning doesn't know. It has very little visibility, in fact. And the two number one use cases for Echo is to set a timer and to play music. It's not to do any of the advanced other things that tend to be buried in the platform itself. And I think the real platform here is going to be some sort of open standard that all devices adopt, implement a software stack, a data standard, a set of APIs that enables them to communicate in the background without you as a human being involved and without Alexa having to be in the middle. And I think that's where the platform needs to be. On the web, there was HTML, HTTP, and we don't have it today on the smart home. We have a collection of proprietary silos, literally operating systems. There's some standards being developed, but they are not made it into the marketplace yet. There is the OCF, there's IoTVT, OnJoin, and they're just in the early phases. And the hope is that they will be adopted by the industry across the board and create a true application platform environment that enables the smart home to be really autonomous and devices from many different brands to work with each other.
So I just have a slight disagreement on, I would love the world to be that egalitarian. My issue is HTML is more of a protocol, but my behavior habits, if that becomes part of an open source, the theft of that is going to be so dramatic that privacy will disappear. So I'm differentiating between protocols being unified. Absolutely, that'll happen. My issue is my behavior, what I do in the home, that being, or what's in my fridge at a given moment in time that I'm out of milk, to put that in an open platform just seems
scary.
I cannot even imagine that being a situation I'd love to be in.
Open platforms don't have to be insecure. We have SSL. We do online banking on the web. It's very secure. We cannot associate open with insecure. I don't think it's the case here.
Again, I don't know, when the open banking platform is a very different use case from day to day, literally tracking me minute by minute what I'm doing. Just like your Google Map example, you have given Google the trust, but I don't know if you'd give the government of the United States the trust to track the same level of information, which is kind of interesting. We don't want to trust our government, but we trust a private company. But to me, that's a real question. And by the way, I'm not saying that's not the right solution. I'm just saying we as humans don't trust community-based projects as much as we trust certain products and brands. That's been the issue. We trust Procter & Gamble more than we trust our local city government, and that's unfortunately the truth.
So just to respond to that, HTML, HTTP is not just protocols. It is an application platform. People write apps that run on top of them. It is actually now the biggest platform in the world. You find HTML5 in smart TVs, in cell phones. It's going everywhere, and it is an open source community effort. It's been the most successful we've ever seen in history. And even Apple is adopting it, in fact.
Well, yeah. You want to? Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of bring it kind of back to everyday folks on the platform piece. I think what's really important is that we can't head down this path where we get this industry to have HD and Blu-ray, and you're asking people to buy 2 copies of everything. That's something that as an industry we have to avoid, and I think it's really important that we make common sense of those types of things and adopt the standards that will help have everyday people buy efficiently to make this industry really move.
But in all reality, people don't really care about standards, right? So I think it's really important we differentiate between the platform, which is a technical underpinning of bringing everything together, and the ecosystem, which is really what we're here discussing today, was how do we monetize that environment. All right, with that, do we have time for a question?
Technically, it's break time.
Technically we can take one question then maybe. Good. All right, are there any questions for our esteemed panel? There's one at the back.
So you hypothesize that the large ticket appliances will be the ones that have the most impact on the smart home. But as technology changes, and if you have a refrigerator, people aren't going to want to buy a new one every 2 years for the new features. So how do you see the interplay between those two?
So I think manufacturers actually don't like the fact that you have to buy a new fridge every 12 years. They love you to have one every 2, 3, 4 years. So if you get your fridge as a service, you're cooling as a service, then they have the option of replacing the fridge whenever they want to. They can make, after technology evolves and the standards change and data collection capabilities improve, they could swap your fridge for a new one. You don't even know that it has improved, just like you get a new phone from your cell phone company every 2 or 3 years. I think we're going to go towards something more like that. And the manufacturers are going to love it because they're going to sell you a lot more appliances that way.
Yeah. Okay, with that, thank you, everybody. The break is out back, and we're back in how long?
We are back at, thank you, everybody.
Okay, that was a good panel. This podcast goes vertical, deep diving into different topics each week. If you prefer a more horizontal and structured approach to learning IoT business and its orbiting technologies, check out my book IoT Inc., published by McGraw-Hill, or become a certified IoT professional by completing the ICIP training and certification program. For details, just go to www.iot-inc.com. Also go to www.iot-inc.com for an analysis of this episode, links to things that were mentioned during the episode, and very importantly, the episode's PDF transcript. Just search for the name of the episode or the guest. If you're new to this podcast, subscribe. That way you'll get every week's episode delivered straight to your device. Or, if you've been listening for a while, there are 3 ways you can support the show. You can leave a rating or a review on iTunes. Just go to iot-inc.com/iTunes. It only takes 1 click to leave a rating, a little bit longer to leave a review. You can share it on social. I'm on LinkedIn, to a lesser extent on Twitter. And of course, you can support the show by buying my book, IoT Inc., or the ICIP training and certification program. It's how I pay the bills. Next week's episode is IoT Investing. Where's the value being generated? Upal Basu and Jesse Demensa. I hope you can join me then. I'm your host, Bruce Sinclair. Thank you for listening. Till next week, may your path to IoT business be a profitable one.
You have been listening to the IoT Inc. Business Show.